Nigel Wright was a man who moved comfortably between two very different worlds: the high-stakes environment of corporate finance and the intense pressure of national politics. His recent passing at the age of 62, announced on September 30th, 2025, has brought his remarkable and often controversial story back into the spotlight. For many Canadians, his name is forever linked to a major political scandal. But to really understand the full picture of the man, one must look at a life defined by extraordinary success, deep faith, and a long-standing commitment to public service, long before he ever became a household name. He was a figure who operated at the highest levels, shaping deals and policies that affected millions. Born with a sharp intellect and a drive to succeed, Wright pursued a legal education that would become the foundation for his future endeavors. He was not just a lawyer by training. He was a strategic thinker who understood the complex machinery of both business and government. His early career saw him involved in conservative politics, working for former prime ministers like Brian Mulroney and Kim Campbell. This early exposure to the inner workings of Ottawa gave him invaluable experience. It was during these formative years that he developed the skills and connections that would later propel him to the very center of Canadian power, showing an early aptitude for navigating complex political landscapes. Wright spent the majority of his professional life away from the political arena, building a formidable reputation in the world of private equity. For nearly 3 decades, he was a key figure at Onex Corporation, one of Canada's most prominent investment firms. As a managing director, he was instrumental in brokering major mergers and acquisitions, even leading the company's London office. This role required immense financial acumen and a keen eye for opportunity. His success at Onex made him an incredibly wealthy and influential figure in the business community, a titan of Bay Street known for his sharp mind and his unwavering dedication to his work and his firm. Even while achieving great success in the private sector, Wright's connection to the Conservative Party remained strong. He was more than just a businessman. He was a man guided by a set of deeply held principles, many rooted in his faith. He believed in the importance of public service and felt a duty to contribute to his country. This conviction eventually led him to make a significant personal and professional sacrifice. He decided to leave his lucrative position at Onex, stepping away from a world he had mastered, to answer a call to serve in Ottawa once again, a decision that would ultimately change the course of his life and his public reputation forever. In 2010, Nigel Wright made the pivotal decision to step into one of the most demanding and influential roles in Canadian government. He took a leave of absence from his position at Onex to become the Chief of Staff to then Prime Minister Stephen Harper. This was not a minor career change. It was a move to the very epicenter of political power in the country. The Chief of Staff is the Prime Minister's most senior advisor, a gatekeeper, strategist, and manager all in one. Wright brought his corporate discipline and strategic mind to the Prime Minister's office, aiming to run it with the same efficiency and precision he had applied at Onex. His arrival was seen as a major coup for the Harper government. Wright's impact was felt almost immediately. He was a key architect of the Conservative Party's strategy leading into the 2011 federal election. His disciplined approach and political acumen were widely credited with helping the party achieve a significant victory, its first majority government. This success solidified his position as an indispensable part of Harper's inner circle. In the corridors of Parliament Hill, he was known as a calm, intelligent, and incredibly hardworking leader who demanded excellence from his team. He was the man who translated the Prime Minister's vision into actionable policy and clear political messaging, wielding immense influence behind the scenes. As Chief of Staff, Wright's responsibilities were vast. He managed the staff within the Prime Minister's office, oversaw key appointments, and played a crucial role in navigating the government's legislative agenda through Parliament. He was the central point of contact for cabinet ministers, caucus members, and senior bureaucrats. His days were a relentless series of meetings, briefings, and crisis management sessions. He was known for his quiet and understated demeanor, a stark contrast to the often loud and confrontational nature of partisan politics. He was the steady hand on the tiller, guiding the ship of state through calm and stormy waters alike, always with the Prime Minister's objectives in mind. For a time, Wright was seen as the model chief of staff, powerful yet discreet, loyal and effective. He had successfully transitioned from the boardroom to the backrooms of power, earning the respect of colleagues and the trust of the Prime Minister. He was at the pinnacle of his political career, helping to run a majority government and shaping the direction of the country. However, this period of success and influence would soon be overshadowed by a growing controversy involving the expense claims of a sitting senator. A storm was brewing that would not only test his judgment, but would ultimately lead to his dramatic downfall from this position of immense power. The political storm that would engulf Nigel Wright began with questions surrounding the expense claims of Senator Mike Duffy. In 2013, it came to light that Duffy had been claiming housing and living expenses for his longtime home in Ottawa, while declaring his primary residence to be in Prince Edward Island, the province he was appointed to represent. The ensuing media frenzy and public outcry created a significant political problem for the Harper government. The issue of Senate expenses became a daily headache, distracting from the government's agenda and feeding a narrative of entitlement and waste in Ottawa. The Prime Minister's office was under immense pressure to make the problem go away quickly and quietly. It was in this high-pressure context that Nigel Wright made a fateful decision. Believing he was acting to protect the government and, ultimately, the taxpayer, he personally intervened. When it became clear that Mike Duffy was unable or unwilling to repay the approximately $90,000 in questioned expenses, Wright decided to cover the cost himself. He wrote a personal check to Duffy for that amount, with the understanding that Duffy would then repay the government. In his mind, this was a decisive action to end a damaging political story. He later testified that his motive was to ensure the Treasury was made whole and to put a lid on a growing crisis. The payment, however, did not remain a secret. When the news of Wright's $90,000 check to Duffy broke, it caused a political explosion. The story was no longer just about a senator's questionable expenses. It was now about a secret payment from the Prime Minister's most powerful aide. This raised serious questions about ethics, influence, and a potential cover-up at the highest levels of government. The opposition parties and the media seized on the payment as proof of a deeper rot within the Harper administration. Wright's attempt to solve a political problem had inadvertently created a much larger and more damaging scandal that would dominate the national conversation for months. The fallout was swift and severe. Wright resigned from his post as Chief of Staff in May 2013, a move Prime Minister Harper later characterized as a dismissal. The RCMP launched an investigation into the matter, which would eventually lead to criminal charges against Mike Duffy, including bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. While Wright himself was never criminally charged, the Federal Ethics Commissioner later found that he had breached the Conflict of Interest Act by using his position to improperly further Senator Duffy's private interests. The scandal irrevocably tarnished his reputation and forced him out of the political world he had worked so hard to master. The legal saga that followed Nigel Wright's resignation was long and public. The trial of Senator Mike Duffy placed Wright's actions under intense scrutiny. He spent days on the witness stand, providing a detailed moment-by-moment account of the frantic efforts inside the Prime Minister's office to contain the expenses crisis. His testimony painted a picture of a man who believed he was doing the right thing, albeit in a way that was ethically and politically fraught. Ultimately, Senator Duffy was acquitted of all charges, with the judge describing him as being forced by Wright and others in the PMO to accept the deal. For Wright, the outcome was a kind of vindication, as he was never charged, but the affair left an indelible mark on his public life. After his tumultuous time in Ottawa, Wright returned to the private sector, rejoining Onyx and resuming his work in London. He stepped away from the public eye, choosing to focus on his business career and his family. The man who was once at the center of Canadian political power retreated into a more private life, though the shadow of the Duffy affair followed him. For his critics, he became a symbol of backroom deals and the ethical compromises that can happen at the highest levels of power. For his defenders, he was a well-intentioned public servant who made a serious error in judgment under extreme pressure, a casualty of the brutal nature of modern politics. Following the news of his death, tributes from across the political spectrum painted a more nuanced picture of the man. Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke of his lifelong commitment to public service. The man he served, Stephen Harper, said he was heartbroken, calling Wright a unique and deeply accomplished person. Even political opponents like Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre described him as a principled and honorable man. These statements suggest that within the political world, his character was seen as far more complex than the single scandal that came to define him in the public's imagination. They remembered the dedicated professional and the sharp intellect, not just the central figure in a controversy. Ultimately, Nigel Wright's legacy is a complicated one. His story serves as a powerful lesson in leadership, ethics, and the immense pressures faced by those in public service. He was a man of immense talent and success, both in business and politics, who rose to the very top. Yet, a single decision, made with the intention of protecting the government he served, led to his public downfall and became the defining moment of his career. His life reminds us that the line between a decisive action and a grave misstep can be perilously thin, and that the legacies of our public figures are often written in shades of gray, not simple black and white.